I know this apparently, I'm assuming was not about the pandemic initially, but I'm just curious how you think it's landing now, because some of the things you just mentioned about, folks kind of being disconnected from others who might be suffering with the loss of a loved one or the economic impacts of the pandemic. How do you think the film might be affecting people if they watch it today?
Yeah, so it definitely was obviously not about the pandemic. I had no idea. I didn't have the foresight, but now, what's interesting is that one of the biggest things that I'm noticing that has been brought out by the pandemic is like the surge in conspiracy theories and how people are finding that it's easier to create a narrative, to create an enemy, and instead of actually just accepting that there might be just chaos in the world and no one is out to get you necessarily. I think that's, there's so many things that, like there's a lot to deny right now, like what could happen in the next year, like you were saying, like loss of loved ones or just people around the world and the collective trauma of it all. I originally really only wanted it to be about climate change, and now it's just there's so much more globally that like we're dealing with and like grappling with and trying to make sense of, really. So
right, and I think in a number of ways could be very relevant to what people are going through right now. Again, for folks who are on the call and the conversation, feel free to submit your questions, and we'll get to as many of them as we can. Or rather, on the topic of some of the issues that have bubbled up at the moment that we're in, one of them, of course, is racial justice and inequality. I was struck that you have a diverse cast. You have a female-led cast, which I think is great. Could you talk a little bit about that? Was that intentional to have those particular characters there? And what do you think the resonance of that might
be? I think that's a good question. So I actually wrote the script with Zelda in mind because she's actually a friend, and her and I, every time we see each other, it's always a very existential conversation. And so I cast her, not with the intention of it being, a diverse cast, but of course that is important to me. It's actually, yeah, I mean, it can really be applied to anything because so many people are denying, the systemic racism in the country too. So it was just like one after the other, all of these like causes, all of these like big global things where we have to look within ourselves and, stop denying that things are actually happening around us and actually be a part of it. I mean, the short, I don't propose any kind of solution. I just show you something that's kind of ugly, and I feel like I'm actually kind of nice to the audience because I remove you afterwards. I'm like, you saw that was a cautionary tale. Are you either going to feel like you agree or disagree? Or what decision would you make? Are you going to remain in denial, or are you going to step up and do something about it?
Right, we get this sense of, especially with the flowers, the beginning and the end, this sense of like a window into a world that maybe is a reflection or not, which I thought was interesting. Was that part of your thinking, that was sort of having that frame, it created a dynamic with the audience?
Yeah, I wanted it to feel like it was a cautionary tale that we are entering this world. I'm giving you a glimpse of something ugly, and you're allowed to leave afterwards, but you need to think about it. After you close the book, the storybook ending, you still have to think about what it is. It felt like my way of not attacking everybody. It was more like, let's watch this and see it unfold, and then tell me how it makes you feel and what comes out of it. But it was definitely a thematic choice, but also stylistically, I really wanted to up the paradise, you know, the world, the delusion of it all. And so that helped too.
Yeah, absolutely. I definitely gathered that. Could you talk a little more, Adele, about your process? And is this, you know, is it, yeah, have you done a number of other films on similar themes? Do you feel like this is a type of work you want to continue doing as a filmmaker? Just would love to hear a little more background on your kind of you as a filmmaker and how that came to be.
Yeah, I don't think I think this is probably maybe the heaviest and also the most personal piece of work that I've made. Um, but I'm always interested in the stories of identity and who we are to ourselves and who we are in the world. So I think I'm going to continue on with that because I think we're always changing. We're always trying to like grapple with who we are. And also I really, really like the sister, almost best friends, almost sisters relationship. Some of my most deep relationships are either with my best friends or my little sister. So I think that I am going to continue on in that world just to, you know, it's interesting because they're in bathing suits, they're in like bikinis the whole time, but I don't think they're sexualized once. And I didn't realize that till afterwards. I was like, oh, this could have become really sexy really fast. But I really like how grounded and like almost dry and serious the conversation is the whole time when it's, you know, contrasted with such a glamorous Vogue style life.
Yeah, and I think that might enable the audience to sort of take from it what they will. I think the Gina Davis Institute and some others have a test, right, about, especially when you have female lead characters or folks of color in film, to show like whether or not they're full characters or if they're just talking about their gender, they're just talking about their identity.